Good beginning. So shoot, what is the question regarding moot court?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, for example, they have given us some data about the case. So there is nothing
It's
mentioned
called,
that.
no. Tushar, it's not called data. It's called, they've given the problem for the moot court.
Yes, ma'am. Problem for the moot court. So,
Huh.
like, I am preparing from either side for dependent or, for example, from prosecution side. So, can I skip some?
Either side means you will prepare only one side. You will not prepare both the sides.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
can choose which side, but
Yes, ma'am.
only one side. For some
So,
moot courts, when it is national, international moot courts, you will be preparing both the sides.
so
Divakar, can you mute yourself because the voice, my voice is resounding. Yeah, so for this moot court, only one side. You decide which side you want to take.
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I want to
Did you
ask that.
did you have a training before they released the moot problem?
When we just had the orientation in that there was, uh, uh, two people presented a proper moot court. They showed us,
Mm-hmm.
and also there were different speakers who told us about different things, how to prepare memorial, oral rounds, everything.
Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
okay. So now, Tushar, you attended that workshop?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question apart from that, ma'am. It was not covered in there.
Okay, पूछो.
सो मैम क्वेश्चन ये था कि मैम जैसे उसमें ना कुछ जैसे बता रखा है कोई केस के बारे में, तो अगर मैं एज अ डिफेंडेंट कहूँ कि ये चीज जो है ये हुई नहीं, ये सिर्फ प्लेंटिव्स कंटेंट करने में, ऐसा कर सकता हूँ कि मेरे
नहीं
को
कह
वो
सकते.
सारी चीजों को
ये
फैक्ट्स मानना पड़ेगा?
basic principle, first principle moot court. Whatever facts have been given, these are the facts. You cannot say it did not happen or something
ओके
else
मैम.
happened. The only thing you need to do is to interpret them. You can say, you can give interpretations of those facts, that what does this fact indicate? What does it mean? How does it know how this fact is favorable to me? Or there's something more which is more important to be focused. So, somewhere the whole point is that these are the facts. Some of them may be irrelevant facts. So you need to know which are the relevant facts and focus on that. And facts can always be interpreted in different ways. So what are the possible explanation as to why is this fact there? Why did this happen? So you cannot cook up facts. You cannot tell lies. You have to
No,
stick to what the facts are given.
I want to don't add the fact, but I want to remove one fact from my statement. So I want to say that this was not from my side, that was said by plaintiff.
Let me get some water. In the memorial, you will be restating the problem. So you cannot hide a fact, but you can present it in such a, you can reformulate the language to bring up your aspect of it. So if some fact is irrelevant and you do not, but you should know, first of all, you should have, as we said, you should have all your facts on the fingertips. Because in the moot court, the judges will be asking you questions on facts, where it is given. You'll be able to point out such para, such line, this is what is written. If the judge say that, no, you have not mentioned that, So it should have an explanation as to why did you not mention that. So therefore, emphasizing the facts which are on your side is the technique, and minimizing. It's not that no, don't give them, but present them in a manner that it will seem like that they are not important.
मैम जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल मैं ये हम जैसे सपोज आई एम फ्रॉम डिफेंडेंट साइड, तो कैन आई से दैट दिस फैक्ट गिवन इन द स्टेटमेंट इज फ्रॉम प्लेंटिव साइड, नॉट फ्रॉम माय साइड? वी डोंट
No.
एग्री विद दैट.
No, because these facts are proved.
Okay, ma'am.
If plaintiff and defendant, the facts given have been proved in the court of law. That's the assumption of the moot court. So if this fact exists, then how do you deal with that fact? You cannot ignore the fact, you have to deal with the fact.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you. That was all right.
So any other question on the course? So we have completed a major topic in our course material, which is the murder and culpable homicide and the exceptions. We're ready to move on to now getting more nuances attached with this. Moving on to the area of causing death by rash and negligent act. Which is the section?
304A, ma'am.
Okay, you want to read?
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Section 304A, causing death by negligence. Whoever causes the death of any person by doing any rash or negligent act not amounting to culpable homicide shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or with both.
It's okay, good. That's a good reading. Now, in this one, what we realize is that we are talking about death which have been caused, death has occurred, but it does not amount to culpable homicide. So previously we were starting with the instance that the death amounts to culpable homicide. In some cases, it will amount to murder. Now we are saying which are the deaths caused, what are the circumstances in which the action of a person and death will be caused. It will still not amount to culpable homicide. So when so what are the acts, what are the circumstances where whoever, so gender neutral, causes the death of any person, even though they have used the word person. Why 304A is not murder? Because we have a separate definition of murder. The nature of harm caused, is mens rea, the kind of mens rea entertained are different. So death has been caused. So for example, in this one, we are saying that death has been caused by rash or negligent act of the person. But if suppose the death occurs by pure accident, does that mean that suppose I was driving and suddenly, and this did happen to me one day, fortunately nobody got injured. So I was driving not at a very fast speed in my locality only, and suddenly a child on a tricycle came rushing down in front of my car. So the gate in his house was open, and there was a slant, and he just came at such a great speed. If I was slightly at more speed, I would have hit that child. The child would have died. I was certainly very upset that how can the parent be so negligent? So it was the parents who were negligent, but they can't be held liable for the death of the child. I was not negligent at all. So sometimes it may happen that accidents do happen just purely suddenly. You were driving your car, you were driving at a reasonable state, and one day I was driving, and a person in front of me, there was a bike going in front of me, and they crossed the speed breaker at a speed. So there was a bump, and the fellow behind, sitting on the back seat, just fell in front of my car. I just had to slam my brake, and he was saved. But these are scenarios where death may occur. So it was not, I was not negligent, but it was suddenly that they didn't realize that there'll be such a big bump. So this fellow just fell in front of my car. So just because a death is caused does not mean it is all has to be murder. Even in case of 299 and 300, not every killing is murder. So therefore, this question which has been asked that why 304A is not murder, because it is less culpable state of mind, as we say it. So when you're not paying attention, your mind is under that, okay, you have to reach such and such place you have a very important meeting. What are you going to say in that meeting? What no is your principal is going to give you a dressing down. So there may be things other than driving which are in your mind, and your mind is distracted from driving. And in that scenario, you're not supposed to do that, but it does happen sometimes. So when that happens, the law says it will be a case of 304A and not 30. Yes.
Ma'am, like you said that these cases are for people who have been negligent in their actions and caused death of somebody. What if the person was not negligent? He was reasonable, completely in control, and still death happened. He couldn't control the situation. So is
Yeah,
there
so
any?
that's called pure accident. If it's a pure accident, no liability comes in. But if you're negligent, you do not
Section 8.
have the intention, it will be still liability will be still there. This is a much lesser liability than of culpable homicide. But the maximum, when we talk about punishment clauses, which do provide and are indicative of how has the legislator thought is the seriousness of the offense. So when you look at murder, it's very serious because there is only two minimum, the minimum mandatory sentence of life imprisonment has been provided. That's the minimum you have to give. You can give one death penalty. In case of culpable homicide, even though the maximum are very high, life imprisonment, or it may be up to 10 years. So when you say up to 10 years, it can be even 1 day imprisonment because it's only the maximum has been prescribed, but depending on the circumstances, facts, judges may think it's appropriate to give a lesser punishment. In case of 304A, the punishment prescribed is at maximum is 2 years. So minimum can, even in case of 304A, it can be 1 day, and in case of 304, it can also be 1 day, technically speaking, because there is no mandatory minimum. So there will be some offenses, and rape is a major example we'll be studying in this course, where the legislature has laid down that you cannot give them less than 7 years of imprisonment in a rape case. In an aggravated category of rape, it has to be minimum 10 years. So even minimum has been prescribed in some offenses, but that is a newer trend. Traditionally, the judges were always given the higher cutoff, and then what will be the exact sentence to be given to the person, to an individual case, judges decided. Thereafter, administrative discretion also played a part. Because when you go to prison, there is also, the rules are there that for your good behavior, you can be released earlier. There might be pardon. There might be any number of things all happening. So even after the judicial decision, a person may actually undergo lesser sentence than that. But so we have determined by the legislature maximum, then actually what will be given in this case by the judge, and what actually the person will have will depend on what happens to him or her in the prison. But this scenario is that in all these cases, punishment is there. These are culpable. These are punishable categories. But these are not punishable in the same manner, because the state of mind in the three circumstances, the nature of injury caused, the circumstances in which the injury has been caused are different. So that's where the distinction lies. Here, there are two states of mind. One is negligent state of mind. The other is recklessness. What is the distinction between the two? What does negligence means? You are not paying attention to what you are doing. Recklessness, on the other hand, is just the opposite. You are fully paying attention. You are completely into fast driving. You're concentrating on the vehicle and the speed. You're having a lot of thrill out of that. And you are very confident that it will not go wrong because you have so much skill. You are so quick with your reflexes. Accidents will not happen. You'll be able to put the brakes.
Overconfident, ma'am.
Tushar?
I said overconfident.
Yeah,
Not
no,
confident.
the person does not believe. The person does not believe I'm overconfident. The person believes I'm confident. So, but turns out that he or she was overconfident. So, can you think of any examples of recklessness?
Yes, ma'am. Road accidents, normally bikers.
Driving.
Ma'am.
Driving what?
Reckless driving, ma'am.
No, but reckless driving is it's just a word. It's a, you put an adjective to the driving. What does that mean? What will be a good example of reckless driving?
Drinking and driving.
Like, ma'am, thinking that I can drive at 100 So it's, for example,
100 on the busy road.
yes, ma'am,
Like,
busy
you know,
road.
there's a busy road, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of vehicles, there are all kinds of vehicles. You think you can switch past, you can just go. So think you have that skill. I've seen, you know, very young children on a tricycle, they can, bike racing. So, no, and again, you know, bike racing on the track is fine, but you do bike racing on a ring road in Delhi, certainly an example of. Wave like drive, I'm not very sure, 100 plus speed. So 100 plus speed is no speed if there is no speed limit for a stretch which is usually vacant. In Delhi, for example, we have areas where the speed limit provided by traffic police is 40, sometimes 50, sometimes 60, sometimes 70. So even though some stretches in Delhi you can drive at 70, but if you drive at 70 at a lane at a place where the speed limit is 40 or 50, certainly you are driving faster. So you are not only committing the traffic offense, you are also now doing reckless driving. And that is where, when you look at the fine system, they do say for reckless driving, it's much, you know, that's where the speed barriers, etc., now are considered very serious offenses of the traffic challans.
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yes.
Ma'am, if my son, who is a minor, he does reckless driving and he kills somebody, ma'am, who is liable? Am I liable or on
Now,
curious?
now with the amendments in the Motor Vehicles Act, the parent is also liable. And the child will only be treated under the Juvenile Justice Act. They will also have a liability, but the parents are also liable. Previously, parents were not, but after a couple of recent incidents, the amendments have taken place and the parents are also liable. So a child driving below the driving age, whether that will amount to reckless or negligent or neither. The fact is only that a child of
Negligent, ma'am.
17.
Then it will be a negligent driving.
The child may
It
not be
will be
negligent.
parents and the child are overconfident that yeah, he's young but he can drive.
No, but the child does
That
have no. The child does have complete because look at yourself. When you were one day less than 18, you can't drive. Tomorrow you can drive. So do you overnight get some skills? So the child has already the skill. So we are not questioning the skill of the child. So the skills of the child are not in question. Can we say that it was a reckless driving or it was a negligent driving?
Ma'am, I'm saying that when a parent gives a bike or any vehicle in the hand of a minor, it is basically assumed by them and the child that he will drive it safe. He
Nirupam,
can drive.
Nirupam, I'm saying the child was not driving. The child had the skills, but he did not have the age, and he was
Ma'am, it is
driving the
reckless.
vehicle. Rahul,
It is recklessness driving, ma'am, I think.
why it is reckless?
Ma'am, though he have the skill to drive, but that will be, if any consequence happen, it will be a illegal consequence. So
If suppose, we're just talking about driving part of it, we're not talking about the consequences. So if a person is going at the speed of 120 on a busy road, and no accident happened, you saw that fellow going on the bike at 120. Would you say he was recklessly driving or not?
yes, ma'am, I will say.
The accident is not, we're not concerned about the accident part of it. We are
Yes.
concerned about what is the action which will amount to recklessness. So if a child is driving and he is not driving at a fast speed, he is paying full attention to his driving, can we say he was driving negligently or recklessly? That's my question. He still commits an offense, but a different offense. So one has to be clear that they're good, because when it comes to age, these are technical categories in this case. So he was not negligent, he was not reckless, but he is a child and the law does not permit a child to drive. I think for scooties, etc., perhaps you can get a driving, the learner's license at the age of 16 or 17, I'm not too sure. So if you have that, you're driving. So if you pay attention, nobody can hold you for that, no? So one has to focus on the action, and then of course, if the consequence of that reckless or negligent driving happens a death of somebody, then 304A. 304 is attracted even in case of a child committing driving recklessly. So if a child is committing recklessly, the punishment will not flow, the prosecution will not happen under the CRPC and IPC. That will happen under the Juvenile Justice Act. But children till the age of 18 cannot be tried in the same manner. In cases, their inquiries are held and appropriate action for their rehabilitation reformation is taken. Sometimes sending them to the children institutions, sometimes releasing them on probation, etc. There are lots of other orders possible. But in such cases, the parent will still have to take the liability for the accident. So child is under the Juvenile Justice Act, the parent is under the Motor Vehicles Act. So the parent will be liable as per the provision of the Motor Vehicles Act because he is not driving himself. Coming back to the definition of the distinction. So in case of reckless, you are paying attention, you believe accident will not happen, but you are doing the activity in such a manner that injury may happen. So if you are not a qualified doctor and you perform a surgery and something goes wrong, the patient dies. Your action is reckless or negligent?
Ma'am, it is
Reckless, ma'am.
reckless.
Reckless.
Ma'am, because it was foreseeable that he might do it wrong, but he
He
still
thought I have the skill, I can operate. I've seen so many operations. I've been the assistant to the doctor for so many cases. I can do it. But you do not have the qualification to do it. So the standard of care required of, he did a very good job as a non-skilled surgeon. But non-skilled people are not supposed to be doing the surgery. If they do it, they are being reckless about that. When we have instances where the doctor operated and left a seizure inside, the person dies because of the infection caused by the seizure in the bone. What will be the action?
Ma'am, it is negligence.
Negligence, ma'am.
I most probably has forgot while doing all that. It was not that he intended to do it.
It's a negligent act.
Did not pay sufficient care. You are the engineer and you're getting a building constructed. You did not put the warning signs around the building which was being constructed, the scaffolding. A scaffolding fell and killed a passerby. Reckless, negligent.
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 And this is because he didn't intend it, he didn't knew that could occur. He just forgot to mention the warning to hold that hoardings of warning signs and all. He just forgot.
Yeah, so if you do not take sufficient care expected of you while doing a thing, then you are being negligent. You take your car and you haven't got it surfaced when it was due. The brake fell, and because of which somebody died, whether death, and you're not driving at a speed or anything. But when you saw this person, you put your brakes and they failed. The person died, came under your car. The death has been caused by reckless act or negligent act.
Negligent.
Negligent.
Your duty is to get your car properly serviced. If you don't do that, the consequences are yours. You are not paid sufficient attention. So very clearly, the two sometimes may be together also. Your mind is also in the meeting and you are getting late for the meeting and therefore you are driving also recklessly. So there might be a possibility of both also happening. But even if one of the two is there, we have a liability under section 304A. So who is going to tell us these facts of Cherubin Gregory?
I mean, Cherubin Gregory case, basically what happened was there was this defendant and the There was a person who entered in his premises using his building. He warned them that it is my property. You shouldn't enter in it. But still the person came coming. So he put the wires so as to put a warning that the person doesn't enter, and still they ignored it and kept coming in his house. One day, the person touched the wire, and it was like a bit open live wire. They got electrocuted and died after that, and that's how he was sued.
Okay, so the owner of the property puts a naked live wire to protect his property. He didn't want the neighbors to come and use his toilet, whose toilet had broken down. The neighbor came, did not notice the wire, and got electrocuted. An important fact is that at the end of the naked wire, there was a light bulb also. And that is one of the facts the defense has used to say, look, I had put a warning sign also that this is a live wire. So in this case, what do you think? Whether liability is for negligent act, reckless act, or is it a culpable homicide?
Ma'am, he didn't have the intention to kill, because if he
Surely
had the
the first,
intention to kill,
if he did have the intention, the first part of 299 gone.
yes, ma'am.
Then second
Uh,
part of 299, did he have the intention to cause injury as is likely to cause death?
No, ma'am.
Third would be applicable, ma'am. Knowledge likely to.
So dangerous
left
an
the wire
act with the knowledge that he by his act is likely to cause death. Is that attracted? In this case, what has the judges said?
Correct.
What are the judges hold?
Ma'am, judges were of the view, they were taking the defense of private defense, that the person is entering in my premises, so I have a right to protect my property, and therefore I put this, and they have no right to enter in my house. The judges held that the private defense is taken in cases in which imminent danger is posing a threat, and the neighbors were not posing any threat to him; they were just using his toilet. So that was dismissed.
That's
Ma'am,
trespass, all
judge
right?
took that recklessness. They took that.
Ma'am, the
Maybe they
judges.
have the right of private maybe he have the right of private defense over his property. He don't
If
have
he
the right
has,
to make any reckless disregard to punish or to make harm to the trespassers. This is what the judge took in this case, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. The judges said though he can make arrangements to prevent trespassers.
But yes, ma'am. They said it clearly that it is not a civilized behavior to set traps and all that things which can kill another person, like they used to do in their houses. That is not allowed. That is not a civil behavior. They could have opted some other option, but putting something that puts someone in risk and traps that are not allowed. That is not allowed. That behavior is not allowed.
no, my question is that why is it that third part of 299 is not said to have been attracted in this case? Because we said that the death caused by such rash and negligent act as does not amount to culpable
No, I
homicide.
think it should be attracted, because
Ma'am, section
was
219.
it was an open and live wire which could have killed any person. So any person would have knowledge that, yeah, no matter how many warning signs you're putting over there, that thing could kill another person. This should
Ma'am,
have been taken into consideration.
Rahul,
Ma'am, I think section 299 thirdly speaks about the knowledge of doing an act, but 304A doesn't have either knowledge or intention of doing 304A. So it will clearly attracts 304A only, ma'am.
So the act was not
99 thirdly speaks about
the act done by the owner was certainly not a negligent act, because he was not paying attention. He took proper attention, and he believed
but recklessness.
that he believed that by putting that bulb at the end of the wire, he is giving sufficient warning, and therefore accident will not happen. That's what the recklessness is always about. Reckless is about that you think that you can see that the danger is there, but you believe it will not happen. That's where the distinction lies. So in this case, he did know that somebody can die, but he believed that by putting that light bulb at the end of the day, it will not happen. That's what recklessness is about. So he was not doing the act without thinking of the consequences. He was thinking of the consequences, and therefore he was actually taking a precaution also. But that precaution wasn't enough. The same way somebody drives at a fast speed, they think we got complete control over the brakes and everything, and the split second I can stop. So it is not that he was not taking care to prevent the harm, but the action itself was more reckless than he thought it was. So therefore,
299 section 3 doesn't talk about how many warning signs you put over there, how many warnings you give to the person. It just talks that if you have the knowledge and you're causing death, then you are liable for it. There is no exception to it.
True, but but the distinction between recklessness, so therefore, if you were to make that argument, then every person who drives rashly will be held in 299. Then what will be your example in your understanding of a case where it will be 304A by recklessness? Can you think of another example where it will not be 299 thirdly, but only of, and these are the cases we have had debate every semester on this one. Some of our students think that no, it was more appropriate case of 299 thirdly. And some of us who believe that no, this is rightly given under 304A. And that is where the skill of lawyering comes in. And in that sense, I find the second case really, really enlightening, really tell you how a lawyer's understanding of the facts, detailed facts, can come to the rescue. So here also, there were a couple of arguments. One was that they were trespassing, curricular offense, and therefore, I am entitled to take action in private defense of my property. And the action I've taken is private defense. And judges did grant that, yes, you can take action in private defense. But in order to defend your property, you cannot set death traps. That's what the judges said. And that even civil law, we do not allow this. So the trespasses are taught also. But there also, they refer to judgment saying that by in the exercise of a right to private defense, to prevent trespass, you cannot create death traps for the intruders. Even that much, because the other thing, it was not only my act, contributory negligence. This person died because this person came to my house and committing the offense. In committing the offense, it was his contributory action which resulted into death. So that also the judges have not accepted that part. So the whole point here is that these are borderline cases, and it is a question, it is the ability of the lawyer to persuade the judge that this is a borderline case where more appropriate punishment is for recklessness rather than it is the 304.
Ma'am, what would have
kind of question has arisen in number of other cases. There can be recklessness of various kinds. So we have had cases where somebody is doing drunk driving, and then he realized he has run over a person sleeping on the road. So then this person backs up without paying attention to the other people sleeping on the road also. And he mows down 6 more people. Complete recklessness. But this is a recklessness of a kind, which now the judges are saying these are cases of all 304 and not 304A. Of cases of 299, punishable with 304 and not 304A. Previously, all accident cases were always usually and most of the time dealt with as 304A cases. But then cases started coming up where the person driving was so reckless that it was actually coming in the category of the thirdly of 299. So, there's a procedure, when the proceedings and trial happens. So before the trial begins, there is a hearing. So first of all, FIR, etc. is filed, the police does the investigation, then the matter is listed in the court. And on the first hearing, first time, there is an argument as to what is the charge, whether the appropriate charge on the basis of the investigation report, whatever the police has produced, if they are able to satisfy all those, they are able to prove all that what they are saying, whether the offense will be culpable homicide, will it be 304A? And there is a proper arguments by the lawyers on both the sides. So it is at that point of time that the lawyer can convince the judge. It may happen that at this time the charge was framed by the court. Charges are, first of all, the police levies a charge, but that's not the final charge. Charge is always finally determined by the judge on the basis of the final report of investigation submitted by the police. So on the basis of what has been, whatever they attach everything, whatever they want to produce, they have to open all their cards, the prosecution. So on the basis of the evidence given, the documentary evidence, that they talk to somebody, they will write it all down. They would have seized something, they would have got the viscera report, they would have got the medical examination, forensic department, whatever reports they have, they will produce everything in the court. Court will examine all those and then determine that if these are also finally presented in the court and proved, what will be the offense. So therefore, at that point of time is the point where the lawyers fight with each other. The defense lawyer would want to get a lesser charge by arguing that no, it is not a case of knowledge likely to cause death. It was a case where he had knowledge it was likely to cause death, but he was actually wanting to ensure, he has taken the effort to ensure that it will not happen and bring it down into recklessness rather than allowing it to remain in the knowledge category. And this is one such case where possible arguments are on both the sides. And it is for you to argue. So if there's somebody who is driving after drinking, what is the level of drinking can also determine. So it's not that all drinking and driving will result into 299. It may be that now you're just over the limit or you are completely senseless. So all the factors may determine whether the case will come under 299 thirdly category or whether it will be, you can convince the judge for recklessness. In negligence also, if you are paying no attention to whatever you're doing, you are aware of that your brakes are not working properly, you still do not take your car for repair, driving that car recklessly with a very high speed also in a congested area, you're adding to. So first you were negligent, now you're adding to it also, then becomes gross negligence. So somewhere these are always debatable categories, and it is up to you to emphasize on facts to support your position. If a prosecution liar, you would want to emphasize on facts which will say, no, it was a really gross recklessness or gross negligence case, and therefore 304 is the appropriate charge. Charges are made not under 299-300. Charges are made in the punishing clauses, punishing sections. So look at 304A. It gives you the offense and punishment in the same section. But in case of murder, definition under 300, punishment under 302. So when the charge will be, it will not be has been charged under section 300. That is just a definition. It does not, it only tells you what will constitute murder. So if you do that, then what punishment will happen? That is section 302. So the charge will be under 302, 304 or 304A. So charge, a lot of discussions happen also between 302 and 304 also. The defense lawyer would want to minimize and say, no, it was 304 and not 302. And the fact that you say that it is 302 does not mean that you are going to get your client convicted for 304. So don't confuse yourself. Don't get confused on this aspect. That if you said, no, the charge is not 304, it is 304A, you're not conceding at that point of time when there is an argument on charge that your client has committed 304A. It's only that the evidence will be then presented to prove 304A, and you will have to say, no, 304A is also not proved. So these are two different things. It may become a little complicated, little confusing, but these are two different proceedings. One is only because the defense should have a clear understanding of what is the charge. If the charge is 302, then the arguments, evidence, etc. will have to address the ingredients of 302. If charge is 304, you have to work on that. If it is 304A, suppose you're charged with 304A. In the arguments at the charge state, you convince the judge that it's 304A. At the end of the trial, even if the judge feels that no, it was a higher thing, it should have been 304, 304A. That cannot happen. Lesser punishment can be given, lesser offense can be convicted for, but you cannot be convicted for a higher offense. So therefore, at the stage of framing of charges, a very, very important stage in criminal prosecutions. It's only when the charge is framed, then then it is asked, do you plead guilty to this charge? And of course, the defense will say, no, I do not plead guilty as a charge. Or you may, depending on what your client thinks. So it's only after framing of charges that it is asked, do you plead guilty or not? So even though you have agreed that on the basis of what the police has told you, it is 304 or 304A, you are not conceding yet that yes, because the police says 304, therefore my client is liable for 304. And so coming back to the distinction between the two, between circumstances which will not amount and which will amount to culpable homicide, our focus is going to be whether the act remains in the realm of negligence or recklessness, and not gross negligence and gross recklessness. The moment, and there will be certainly argument on both sides. One party which will be saying no, it is gross, the other will say it is not gross. And what will constitute gross will be a combination of facts in the given case. Now, when you compare the facts of this case, so this, of course, they are not comparable facts, but the manner in which the arguments have taken place. Look at the second case. What is the name of the case?
SM Hussain versus State of Andhra Pradesh.
SM Hussain is a standard bus accident case. So there's a bus which is carrying passenger, and it is some passengers are killed when the bus is crossing a railway line and is hit by the train. These are the basic facts. Now, look at the details of the facts which have been created, which have been produced by the defense counsel. I think defense counsel has done a tremendous job in this case, bringing out how many details are there. So basic facts are the bus is going, it crosses a railway line, and it is hit by the train. On the face of it, it will seem like that if you're crossing if you're going over the railway line, you are negligent. You can see the railway line. But the net result is that the judge said, no, he was not negligent. So what are the facts which the lawyer has put on record in this case in order to prove he was not negligent? He was not driving recklessly also. What are the facts?
First was that the signal, what we say, the fatak कहते हैं. The main crossing was
unmanned. It was an unmanned crossing. One fact. What
Yes,
are the
ma'am.
others? What are the other facts?
Other is said by defendant counsel that the schedule of train is that time is normal passenger train, but that day it was good train.
It's a goods train. So importance of therefore knowing, merely saying they were hit by a train is not enough. Which train? So what is the importance of the difference? The goods train does not have an announced schedule. So therefore it was not that it was expected that the train will come. It came unexpectedly. Good. What are the facts?
Nobody heard the sound of train.
The bus was rickety. They were making a lot of noise. The windows were open. It was a warm time. So because of which there was a lot of the sound of the bus as well as of the wind passing through, because of which the sound of the train could not be heard by anybody, not only the driver. Nobody. There were only so many passengers. Nobody heard that. Good. What are the other facts?
And the crossing gate of that track was open, so it's invite the person to pass from there. So is also the negligence of that person.
Say that again. I didn't get it.
And the track gate was also open that day.
Yeah,
At
it
the
is an
time of
unmanned. It was an unmanned level crossing.
okay.
That we
Ma'am,
may already noted.
the
Yes,
speed of
Saurabh?
bus was also the speed of bus was not high
How
because
did
of
they prove
railway
that?
tracks.
How did they prove that the
Railway,
speed was not high?
because of railway tracks. Because speed slow down when you pass the railway track.
No, they brought it on record that one, there was a curve. So, sir, when you're taking a curve, it has to slow down. And it was at a height. So, if you're going up and then turning, because of which you cannot be driving at a high speed. And then they said there were trees on the way which obstructed the sight. That it was not till the time they actually came on the track that they saw, anybody saw that. So the moment they saw this, what did the driver try to do? Rush, go fast. Bus was hit at the back. So when we saw that the bus, the train is right here, then I tried to then push fast, but I still could not. So which part of the bus got hit is also brought on record.
Yeah.
Look at the
And
beautiful
that
manner in which
Also,
the
when
lawyer, yes,
accident took place near dense forest, a lot of trees were there. So
yes, I mentioned that earlier. That because of the trees, the visibility wasn't there. We could not have seen it. So it is only when we got onto the track that we saw the train. So one, no passenger said there was a whistle, the whistle should have been there. So may have been there, but none of the passengers nor the driver heard that whistle because of the rickety bus and because of the wind through the windows. So for me, this is a good example of a lawyer doing a very good job. He must have done a spot survey to find out where had the accident happened. It's a very, very good defense work in this case. And this is what we need to learn as a lawyer, that it is not only important to know what your laws are, what the legal requirements are, but how do you match your facts to get either a defense or get a conviction, whichever way it happens. So you have to focus on the details, facts also, as many facts you can get by reference to which you can say this legal requirement is not fulfilled. And case law does allow us to learn it that way. Otherwise, you would have just learned this is the distinction, and the case law do have this para which explain to you what is recklessness and what is the negligence. So that distinction you have to take from the case law. But apart from that, what you learn from the case law is how do lawyers defend? How do you? So you need to do two things. One, you need to know what are the legal requirements. So in which case liability will occur under 304A if a death has been caused. Circumstances death has been caused by the act, negligent act or reckless act of the accused person. But whether death in this case has happened in those circumstances or not is a application of that law to the facts of the case. So in this case, the lawyer has brought out the fine nuances of the facts, because there is no speed guard regulator on the bus to say, oh, I was not driving fast. So how do you prove that you were not driving fast, you were not driving recklessness till the accident happened? So in order to prove that, he looks at all the adjoining facts. What was the day like? Where the accident happened? Exactly what is before that? What is in front of you? All that has been brought in to actually make a very good defense in this case. So all of you, please read if you have not read it already. I hadn't attended almost all the classes. If you have attended classes, you don't have to worry. You are supposed to know your attendance is as per your P. And it cannot happen that if you've been attending at any point of time, you could not put your attendance. So I do not want to keep on having these messages from students that I attended, my attendance is not there. Attendance is required 70% classes in any case. So you may not be able to put attendance on day 1, day 2 or something. It cannot happen every day you're not able to put your attendance. So take time whenever you log in, you can always mark your attendance. So, okay, if you have any leftover questions, we can take that up on Monday. Otherwise, we take the next topic. What's the next topic we are supposed to do? Anyone who has a sense of what we're doing in the next class? Law of crimes. So, yeah, so you can ask any leftover questions. Otherwise, we'll start
General
looking at journal exceptions. Even though it is listed for Tuesday, but we'll start on Monday itself. So whatever questions you might have still, we can take them up, and then we will start journal exceptions. So we'll have a journal overview of journal exceptions on 8th, and 8th is also International Women's Day. So anyone who has any interesting thing to bring about International Women's Day, you will get a window to do that. You want to say a poem, you want to bring out certain facts, anything to celebrate Women's Day, we'll do that. We'll take your questions, and then we will start looking at journal defenses. All right? Let's get back to our next class. You and me both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Enjoy your weekend.